Hey everyone, how are you all doing? It's Ultimate Elite. Thank you so much for stopping by, and boy do I have a video for you today. It's my first ever review, my first Ultimate review of Mortal Kombat 11. What a way to kick it off, right? I mean, this is probably my most anticipated game since it was announced back at the Game Awards last winter, and you know, I put out a first impressions video. Thank you so much for those that checked it out. But this one, guys, is me actually going into the game and actually analyzing it, and you'll see here what exactly I mean. I'm probably like the last person out there that's making a review, but at the end of the day, I still wanted to make it just for those that might still be on the fence and are trying to get, and you're the type of person that's trying to get all the different opinions and all the different perspectives on a game before you actually make, you know, a $60 purchase in this case. And you know, Mortal Kombat, I think, will be quite a surprise for a lot of people. So kind of diving right into the video, you might not be aware, but Mortal Kombat is one of those games that have caused a lot of great influence, not just in games themselves but in pop culture. I mean, it's one of the reasons why we have a game rating system in the first place, at least here in the US, and it was one of the first games that challenged the idea, the stigma that video games are just for kids. You know, in the early 90s, mid 90s, when the game was first kicking off in popularity, you know, it was kicking that stigma because of the violence and the gore that video games are just for kids. But now it was kind of evolving to, you know, where older audiences and much more mature audiences can enjoy video games as well. And kind of, you know, flashing forward, you know, almost 2 decades since, you know, the reboot back in 2011, NetherRealm Studios has been continuing to evolve the perception of the fighting genre in many different areas. So you have MK9 and MKX now, you know, under their belt. So what does NetherRealms have for us here in MK11? Is it worth your time? Well, even though the game itself is solid at its core and it's pretty amazing, there are other things that might limit your enjoyment to some extent. You know, how? Well, let's find out. So fortunately for us, MK11 has so much more positive over negative, and kind of just going into those core elements that I was talking about, kind of just jumping right in. Right off the bat, I have to mention the gameplay itself. MK11 feels like a much more balanced experience from the previous ones. This time around, I feel like it rewards smart play. The only way you can really deal a lot of damage is by chaining combos and punishing them right back with counters. And in a lot of these skirmishes that happen, you'll have the fighters return back to a neutral position, not really giving one or the other an advantage to set up another combo without trying to have this chess match with the other opponent. This is the most I've enjoyed the actual combat in Mortal Kombat, even comparing it to the previous versions. But one of the main reasons why I got MK11 was the story. Now, this is one of those trademark revolutions that NetherRealm Studios have been doing to the actual gaming genre. The fact that fighting games can have amazing and compelling stories that are movie-worthy, really. You know, even since MK9 back in 2011, they have just delivered overall solid cinematic storytelling. And it's awesome to tell you guys that MK11 has the best one to date. Just to give you a quick summary of what's going on in the story, so this takes place immediately after MKX, where Raiden has just grown tired of NetherRealm being constantly threatened, and because of this he has changed from this sign of honor, mercy, and harmony, you know, the Raiden we all have come to love, to a very unmerciful, cruel, arrogant, and ignorant God of Thunder. And this kind of, you know, introduces our main antagonist, Kronika, who is a Titan, and a Titan seems to be a being that's much greater or much more powerful than the Elder Gods themselves, so her actual title is a Keeper of Time. And she sees this great unbalance that Raiden has done in her plans to shape the world. And now she's kind of reshaped her plans to get rid of Raiden and set order to not just, you know, the world, but pretty much all of creation and time itself, and kind of doing this in her own twisted, selfish ways. And because of this reordering, we see the 90s versions of our favorite characters we've loved, you know, from previous editions of Mortal Kombat come and meet their modern older selves. Which leads me to the characters themselves, and honestly, this is the first time I was fully engaged with all the characters that made an appearance in the actual story. A lot of the new characters I found very cool, solid additions to the roster for sure, but in particular, I kind of liked Cassie Cage a lot. I wasn't a big fan of the new Special Forces fighters in the last game, but in this one I feel like Cassie is much more mature. She's seen, you know, because of the events of MKX, just what she's up against now, so a much more mature person and up to the challenge and to face whatever she has to in this story. So therefore, she's kind of one of the more complete characters in the entire story mode experience. But even aside from her, everyone else was interesting to me. Some characters did receive more attention than others, but I felt that this was mainly due to the way of the plot developing and the flow of the story. And for those that didn't get much screen time, I feel that their roles within the actual story were solid and, you know, very impactful. In other words, I didn't feel like any of those characters got cheated out of screen time. Overall, this was an amazing story and one of the most enjoyable stories in all of Mortal Kombat, especially the ending, a very satisfying ending, very awesome ending, and it made me wanting more. So that says a lot about that right there. But besides the story mode, what other content does Mortal Kombat offer? Well, other core areas I think would include just the basic online stuff. So ranked matches, the PvP sort of stuff is really good, the netcode itself is pretty spot on, and at the end of the day, I really enjoyed playing online, which is rare for me because I'm a person that kind of enjoys the PvE sort of stuff, so like the towers. And kind of mentioning the towers, they're back, they're as fun as ever, always cool to see the arcade endings, which I'm hoping to maybe bring a lot of those to my channel after, of course, the review and some of the content comes out. And of course you have your usual training mode, however this time around it was quite in depth and it rewards you for actually completing different advanced tutorials. So it was just surprising to me to see so much, you know, emphasis and so much attention put on the actual tutorial mode. It was kind of impressive, and again, I think worth your time if you want to get some extra coins and just complete some challenges on there. You have your basic fights, which is always a good way to hone your skills, and you have a great variety of different stages, my personal favorite being Goro's Lair. You experience it in the story mode, and then you experience it, of course, outside of the story mode. Now, the following isn't necessarily bad, but something you might want to take a look into when you're considering getting Mortal Kombat 11. Okay, so one of the reasons why I was so excited for MK11 was the customization. Now, I knew for a fact that NetherRealms was going to do something like this because it existed in Injustice 2. My question was, how was it going to be implemented for an MK game? So, kind of comparing it back to MKX, where you had those different variations for different characters, this time around you get kind of these basic, what I call shell variations, that you can personalize and customize. And you can customize them specifically with different gear pieces and different movesets. The gear itself, I love it. Different colors and styles, different masks for Sub-Zero, different sunglasses for Johnny Cage, different nunchucks for Liu Kang. You've got modern looking styles, 90s looking styles. Some more unique than others, to be, you know, quite honest with you. But as far as customization, it's pretty great. You can really make your character look and even play differently depending on what your tastes are. Now, if I'm being completely honest with you, I haven't really dived too much into this area because I've just stick to kind of my main players. I really haven't played around yet with everyone, so take what I've said here with a slight grain of salt, I guess, but there's a lot there for you to explore. Well, Tony, that's cool. How exactly do I unlock all these cool gear pieces? Well, some are unlocked by completing parts of the story, but a big chunk get unlocked in the crypt, which it has a pretty badass intro, by the way, with the OG Shang Tsung from the movie, Cary Tagawa.
Your brother's soul is mine.
This time around, the crypt is the same in some aspects, but completely different in other areas. One big one being that you actually can move around the entire map and not go station to station like you did in MKX, which I really wasn't a big fan of anyway. But here's where you get a huge difference, and all the chests are randomized, except huge character-specific chests, and these have a lot of different gear pieces to customize a specific character. These themselves are stationary and aren't random. There are guides online that can point you to them, so I definitely recommend you guys checking that out if you want the specific gear for a favorite fighter. If I can find a good one, actually, I might just put one in the description for you guys. But yeah, here's where a lot of the gear itself gets unlocked. And at the same time, here's where MK kind of loses its standards for me. So like I said, the gear in the crypt is randomized. So you can expect to open a lot of chests and grind a lot of hours to get gear pieces that you actually want for characters you actually want. And the chests are open with different types of currency. You have coins, soul fragments, and hearts. Now, since the patch that they recently did, they have made it much easier to get these 3 different types of currencies, but the grind is obviously still there. And my problem with this isn't necessarily that there's a grind, it's the implementation of the premium shop. So, what does a premium shop offer? Well, you can get specific gear pieces that you might spend hours collecting, and you can just buy it in the shop right there for X amount of money. It's this kind of stuff that just grinds my gears. And I don't mean to go off on a rant a little bit, but it's just that why would you create this system that requires a lot of hard work, that requires a lot of time and dedication into the game for people that want to get the stuff for free, but then you just go ahead and make it easy? You could just spend extra $5 to get the stuff you actually want, or get a set of gear that you actually want, only $5. It's just frustrating. So with everything said and done, don't be expecting to make Raiden look like you want him to right off the bat. It's gonna take a lot of luck or a lot of just dedication opening chests and going through the crypt to get those elements and those different skins and stuff out of it. However, some other stuff can be unlocked in the Time Portal, which is a mode that combines Injustice 2 Multiverse with MKX's Live Towers. And here's where it gets a little interesting. So this review is obviously coming out after the patch. Before the patch, it was just an absolute train wreck. It was just very difficult to progress in the actual towers, and the modifiers were just stupid. And it was just frustrating and disappointing to me, because I was actually excited to actually dive into this game mode, since I had so much fun in the multiverse in Injustice 2. But since the patch actually happened, it has improved quite a bit, and it is fun to a certain extent. However, you will still have those annoying modifiers, and I never was a huge fan of modifiers to begin with, and I don't like the idea of having consumables to kind of nullify these modifiers in a fight or give you an edge in the actual fight. To me, this might just be me speaking, but to me that's not MK. That's not how an MK, fight should be operating. And overall, it was just a huge letdown, and it didn't live up to my expectations of the mode. In conclusion, I just want to re-emphasize that MK11 is an amazing game. The actual core of the game, the center, is spectacular. And if you're an MK fan or even a newcomer that mainly wants balanced gameplay, an outstanding story, solid online experiences, and just a bunch of other stuff on the side, MK11 delivers that tenfold. But just be aware of some other possible shortcomings in other areas. The customization is awesome, but since it's tied to a grindy system in the crypt, and the annoying fights in the Time Portal with modifiers and consumables, which don't necessarily encourage but point to you spending extra money to get specific gear that you might like, just brings all of these elements down as a whole. Even with that, MK11 gets 8 fatalities out of 10, and I highly recommend it for you guys to go check it out. You won't be disappointed as an overall experience. So there you have it, guys, my MK11 review. Thank you guys so much for coming to the channel and checking it out. Be sure to check out my other videos. The support I've been getting has just been absolutely amazing, guys. All of you are the ones that are making this possible, and yeah, that's all I have for you today. Take care, everyone, and unleash your potential.